That's a big complaint from a lot of doctors nowadays is there's always work that's causing you either to get home late or you get home and you're still doing this work.
There are people who are like, they just don't like the on-call, sporadic nature. Anything can happen. The middle of the night. It's not for everybody. So if people listening are like, oh yeah, I want to just be off and then this, that, and the other. I'm like, that's fine. But you got to remember when you are on, the heat is on. Hit it, Alfred. The heat is on. Burn it.
This is Docs Outside the Box, and this is what y'all say. We are both tired. I'm recording this when I am finishing a 12-hour shift, and Renee basically has a continuous shift with these boys right now. So we both are tired. So
if anybody see me on YouTube right now, I look a hot higgity mess. So if you are not
your
watching,
camera looks off. Your camera looks really off, like it's like crooked or something.
Is it? Maybe I'm not sitting directly in front of it. What about now?
I don't know. Either way, someone was messing with the camera while I was gone.
Alfred, fix me.
So listen, since we're talking about me finishing a 12-hour shift, we got a good question from Jamar again, longtime listener.
Jamar keeping us in business, yo.
Yeah, he straight up be listening. So guys, Jamar is one of our longtime listeners. He writes in all the time. We love listening to what he has to say because he has really, really good questions. So
we even had him on the show once.
He's got a question that says, hey, Dr. Darkos, it's Jamar again. Been a while since we talked, and I just recently listened to episode 433. I was wondering what specialties are most like you mentioned, quote unquote, when I'm on, I'm on. When I'm off, I'm off. End quote. What surgical specialties specifically get you as close to this where I can leave my work at work? I understand there are many different ways to approach this lifestyle, but just looking in general for how you rank specialties with a low possibility to high possibility. Good to hear from you all again. So that is from Jamar. That's a good question. So basically, it looks as though he's interested in specialties where, like, listen, it's shift work. He gets in, he does his job, and it doesn't follow him to home, which is a major complaint. That's a big complaint from a lot of doctors nowadays is wherever you go, whether you are in clinic, whether you're in the hospital, there's always work that's causing you either to get home late or you get home and you're still doing this work, whatever it may be. And that's a fear that a lot of people have, particularly the generation that's 2 generations or, I don't know how to explain it, but
Gen
maybe
Z.
10 years. Yeah, Gen Z, they're more into lifestyle. We're just catching up. We're Gen X, but they're really big into lifestyle.
Yeah, so, they're thinking about it much earlier.
Do you want to go first or you want me to go first?
I mean, I can go. I mean, OB certainly is one of those specialties where you can have that option. So it's important to understand that these, when you're on, you're on, when you're off, you're off. These are things that have been carved out for the most part in a lot of specialties because the traditional way of practicing some of these specialties does not allow for when you're on, you're on, when you're off, you're off. So, in OB, that's carved out, right? Because the traditional way of practicing OB is full scope, where you go to office, you go to the delivery room, you go to the operating room, you're, in the ER, seeing patients there, you're doing consults on the floor, you're doing procedures in the office as well, you're ordering labs, you're ordering, more exam testing. And that's kind of the thing that keeps you, right? All of that is what keeps the work at home, right? It keeps the work going even at home. And that's what, essentially I experienced. And I know a lot of other doctors experience is like, listen, if you have a full day of office and you're seeing patients who are now double booked or triple booked because let's face it, some of these hospital systems don't really care whether or not you're seeing, one patient every 15 minutes or if you're seeing three patients every 15 minutes. They will double and triple book you. That is what keeps you at the office longer. That is what keeps you busier in terms of the tests that you've ordered that now you have to follow up on. So these are the things that keep your day just perpetuating. So when I work now, because I've carved out a space for myself where I'm a OB hospitalist, now I'm not doing all of that office work. I'm not doing planned surgeries anymore. I'm not doing office procedures. I only cover the labor floor, and I cover the ER, and I cover consults. So I'm only in the hospital. So that's what's carved out for me, where I can say, this is my shift. This is what I do on my shift. And when my shift is over, in large part, I'm actually done, and the hospital work stays at the hospital.
So I was going to start off by saying like there's tradition and then there's, reality at this point. And I
Mm-hmm.
think the more traditional your specialty is, right, the more likely it's going to follow you home. And I think the easiest way to describe it is if the majority of your patients if the majority of patients that you see are new patients that you have to work up and evaluate in a elective fashion. That means you see them in clinic, you evaluate them in clinic, you diagnose them in clinic. There's a higher chance that it's going to follow you, right? Like it's going to
Mm-hmm.
follow you not
Yeah,
only
take it home.
inpatient wise, but you're going to take it home also.
Mm-hmm.
If the majority of your patients show up in an emergency fashion, I think that tends to be more shift-based type of work, right? Because the
Mm-hmm.
majority of your stuff is someone came in for an emergency, you handle the emergency, they go home, and then that's it, right? So specialties that really focus on taking care of people in an emergent fashion, um, I think those are the specialties that you're
Yep.
really going to see. Hey, you do your work and you go home. So examples, ER, obviously, trauma surgery, right? Um, Hospitalist, right? Here's what OB hospitalist,
Mm-hmm.
right? Anything that is a specialty and hospitalist is attached to it. Orthopedic surgeon
Mm-hmm.
who's a hospital, like is a surgicalist. They call them surgicalists, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even general surgeons who just take care of surgical emergencies, they call them surgicalists also, or acute care surgeons.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the specialties that you really are going to find it easier to say, hey, I want to do what I want to do in the hospital. I want to take care of people. And then when I'm out, I'm out. And it works really well, right? And you have not only years of this, but you got probably have multiple decades of folks working in this fashion where
Mm-hmm.
it's not too much of a shock. But if you look at something like maybe allergy and immunology or cardiothoracic surgery, even just elective general surgery, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where the majority of your patients are coming from referrals, you got to be there in clinic, which means that you're going to be ordering labs, you're going to be ordering tests, you're going to be ordering imaging that a lot of times may not come during office hours. They're going to
It,
come after hours.
mm-hmm.
And you need to
Or
check
days.
those.
Or days later.
Fair enough. You need to check those to make sure that, hey, make sure that nothing is crazy and that someone needs to go to the hospital in the middle of the night. You need to be there to make sure that those are going through. So it's a problem. There's a lot. I mean, we call it information overload, right? Like there's just
Mm-hmm.
so much information that you have to handle while you're in the hospital, while you're at clinic, and possibly when you're home that it just really encroaches on that personal life. And I know now that you work primarily as an OB hospitalist, you experienced this way more than I did. But before that, you worked like the majority of the patients you saw were in a clinic setting and
Mm-hmm.
that you enjoy taking care of patients and seeing them in clinic, but the follow-up was a pain in the ass. And I think
That's what it
even
was.
I was just like, damn, like how much labs and
Can
stuff
we
you gonna be
watch a
checking after
movie
hours? Can I
without
have
your
Duriat?
computer open?
Can I have Duriat without you like and like my Duriat is coming up all messed up, man. My Suspois is coming all messed up because you looking at labs when you should be making my rice. That was real sexist of me, wasn't it?
Well, do you make that? dish? Do you make
No,
those
I don't
dishes?
make that dish.
Exactly.
Don't make that
So you're
dish.
just talking about a
Oh,
reality of our household. But, as much as like I just want to be clear though, right? As much as it might seem very interesting and very attractive to do this acute, basically what we're doing talking about is acute care, right? That people come into the acute set, come in as an acute case, right? They come in because they have an actual issue that cannot be seen outpatient. Um, as much as that might be attractive because of the schedule, you've got to understand that the work also has to be attractive,
oh
right?
yeah. This has got to
Because
you got to be passionate about this.
right. So the work has to be, and not just like, I'm not just talking about passionate being a doctor. I'm talking about passionate about working in that setting, right?
Yes.
Because there are people who are like, don't like being on call. They just don't like the on-call sporadic nature, the anything can happen, the middle of the night. There are
Mhm.
people who just don't like that. And they're like,
Oh,
listen,
we
I
see that
would
all the time. Yeah,
yeah,
I
I
see that.
would
I
get
see that when I'm at trauma programs that have residencies associated with it. I'll see
mhm,
residents who clearly have a talent for trauma, clearly are talented in that, and they'll tell me, Doc, like I just don't want to deal with this. Like
right,
I don't like being able to not know what's coming through the door. I don't
right.
like the unknown. I don't like just kind of the jack of all trades. I just want to be really
Yeah.
good at a couple of things and really,
Mhm.
really good at that. I don't want to have
Yeah.
to know everything. And that
Right.
drives me nuts. And I'm like, Dad,
Yeah.
man, we lost one, but it's the truth. I agree with you
Right.
100%. It's not for
Yeah.
everybody.
It's not for everybody. So if, people listening are like, oh, yeah, I want to just be off and then this, that, and the other. I'm like, that's fine. But you got to remember when you are on, the heat is on. Hit it, Alfred. The heat is on. Burn it. Right. So, we just got to remember that when we are talking about the way that we work, part of the reason that we work the way that we work is because we enjoy that setting, right? We actually do enjoy that setting. I enjoy being there for deliveries. I enjoy doing emergency surgeries. Like, I enjoy doing that. I enjoy kind of the unknown. Like, okay, I don't know what the heck is coming through the door. It can be very scary for people, right? It can be a very, like, a really big source of stress for people who really just, they're like, I don't like running to the danger. I'm okay preventing the danger, but I don't want to run to it.